Yes, good afternoon, everyone that has joined this call. Thank you so much for joining. We are going in for our session of English. We have shared the questions in the chat. Those who have just come in, find those questions in the chat. That's why we are going to base our discussion for today. So I'm resharing them. So in case you have not yet obtained the questions, kindly find those questions in the chat. Okay, so I've shared them in the chat. Those who have just joined, kindly find them there. But I want to ask, yes, Katale Kamese Modern, kindly unmute.
Hey, Sara. Sara. Linda katono. Nana tugamba. Linda.
Okay. Yes, Katale Mes, you want to lead us now out of prayer?
Yes.
Okay, kindly go on.
In Arabic.
It is fine.
In Arabic.
Okay, yeah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. It's okay, you can go on.
Okay, thank you so much for the word of prayer. And let me ask Teacher Teddy and Debla to take over. You are most welcome, Teacher Debbie and Teddy.
Thank you, Mr. Kaziva. I'm not sure if I can be heard. I need someone to say if they're actually hearing me.
Okay, from my side, you are very clear.
Okay, that's good. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope we are well. You're very welcome to this session of English language. And I hope by the end of the session, all of us would have picked something that will actually help us in our UNEB exams. I'm going to run this lesson with Teacher Deborah and Mr. Kaziba. I don't know if you've given me right to screen share as well. Let me try it out and see. Okay. Teacher Deborah, I need confirmation that you can actually see what I am screen sharing.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, thank you. So, in our session today, we're going to look at a typical English language paper, like what should we expect, or what things do we think will actually be kind of similar to what will be in the paper. So we are looking at the typical format of the paper and probably reminding ourselves of some of the things that we need to reflect on or to revise or to reacquaint ourselves with so that we are able to go through this remaining time before we actually sit our exam. Okay. So we will just start by really talking about the paper. And I think many of us actually saw the sample exam that was sent by UNEB, that was people actually tried out and things like that. The guides were also all over. So I hope that some of you, if not all, have actually seen these papers and have looked at the guides. Now, from what is in those sample papers and from what has been agreed on with the people who set for the new curriculum. The paper is typically going to consist of 2 sections. And in one section, we'll have 2 compulsory questions, which will be passages. And these passages, one of them will be a summary passage, and then the other will be a comprehension passage. But unlike the old curriculum, for example, in the summary passage, it won't just be a direct question. What are the advantages of maybe doing exercise? No, they'll give you a scenario like you have been seeing in your classes, and maybe they tell you, maybe a friend of yours has been down lately because they feel that, you know, they don't like their life. And because of that, they have decided to shut themselves in the house and are not getting out and, you know, things like that. And then you have a passage before you that is talking about the advantages of doing exercise. So they tell you, maybe write advice to them using the passage above so that they can be able to do exercises, or write a summary on the advantages of doing exercise so that you're able to help your friend get out of that situation. So you'll find that, yes, it is summary, like we've always done it, but this time you're writing as if you're solving a particular problem, because this curriculum really is about solving issues. So please be very keen. So you'll have a summary passage. You'll also have comprehension passage. And then you'll also have section B. Now, section B is where you'll find that you have to make a choice. So it won't be compulsory. You'll have to choose between 1 or 2 items that will be there. And section B is all about writing. So the functional writing aspects and the creative writing will be in this section. So typically the paper will have 2 sections, that is A and B. Section A will be compulsory, and then section B will have items for you to choose from. There'll be writing items, and you'll have to write in the answer booklet. So unlike the old system where you had 2 papers, this time you only have 1. So that will be like a typical English paper. I don't know if there are any questions before we proceed.
No hand as yet.
Okay, thank you.
A moment, there is a hand. Kataleka, kindly unmute.
Excuse me, madam. Hello.
Yes, we are getting you.
Good evening, madam.
Good evening to you. Please go ahead.
Madam.
Yes, please.
Actually, about the summary writing. Are we going to do 2 papers?
Catholic.
Are we going to do 2 papers, like paper 1 and paper 2? Or we are going to do 1 paper?
You're doing only 1 English paper. it is only one paper. And that
It's going.
paper has 2 sections, okay? So the summary question will be in section A. It is compulsory. And then there'll also be another comprehension passage in the same section, which will also be compulsory. Then the writing that used to be paper 1 will be in section B. So everything is in one paper, okay? I hope I've answered your question.
I hope he has got Teacher Teddy. There is another hand. Allowing, though you have a name of a school, kindly go ahead. Central. Okay, they put their hand down. I think it was the same question.
Okay. Thank you, Teacher Deborah. So people, let us not get confused. The paper will be one paper with both the writing section, which will be section B, and then there'll also be the compulsory section, which is section A, where you'll have the summary, and then you'll also have a comprehension passage. So we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of the paper, certain things that you might find or things that you would expect to find in the paper. Okay? So now we're first getting into section A. And item 1, which can also be called number 1, is what will be your summary. Now, in your summary, like I have said, don't expect a direct question. Like maybe you have a passage on malaria and you have something to do with mosquitoes. Don't expect a question like, what causes? From the passage, summarize the causes of malaria, causes and spread of malaria. Don't expect such a question, but expect a question that will have a scenario, and that scenario will need you to reflect on what is in the passage and use whatever is in the passage to now give your answer. So you're still summarizing the facts in the passage, but bearing in mind that you have a scenario. For example, when you look at this question here, your friend is finding it difficult to decide on whether to join university or vocational school. Using the above passage, tell her the advantages of the vocational institution, okay? Use 100 words. So we are imagining that the passage is before us and it's probably talking about the advantages of vocational school. So we are supposed to find answers from the passage and then tell our friend, this imaginary friend, about these advantages of her or his going to the vocational institution. So you're using the passage to help you solve an issue that is before you. But whatever you're doing is ideally summarizing a particular aspect of what is in the passage. So don't expect a direct question that is just telling you to summarize. Instead, they'll give you a scenario and you're supposed to use whatever is in that scenario to either give advice or talk to your friend. You know, they can use any of those words. Talk to your friend and tell her about the advantages. Advise your friend and tell her about whatever is in the passage. So please do not expect a direct question. I can see someone from Metu Secondary School putting up their hand. Please go ahead and ask.
Good evening, madam.
Good evening to you.
Okay, for me, I have just one question. Like, if you are directed to write or summarize using 100 words,
Hmm.
but your words exceed 100. For example, you wrote something like up to 104. Will the summary be marked correct or it will be wrong?
No, the summary will be marked, okay? Remember, your curriculum is about what can someone do, okay? So if you can be able to pick out answers and then put them on paper, that is what is most important. Can you pick out those answers and put them on paper? Of course, if they've asked you for 100 words and you write 200, that is too much. That is why you have your rough copy to edit out some of those. So try and be near within the word limit. It might not be exact, but within the word limit. So for example, if you have between 100 and 110 words, that is not very bad. Or if you have less, maybe 90, that is also not bad. So try as much as possible to stay within the limit. But as you're staying within the limit, you're also mentioning the points. Make sure you're mentioning all the points that are in the passage.
Teacher Teddy,
Yes, please.
thank you so much. Should we first take a few hands, then you respond at the end, or you respond to one at a time?
Let's do one at a time.
Okay, so help 24, kindly ask your question. Unmute and ask.
Maybe we get the one from Kisana Secondary School. I don't know why help isn't unmuting.
Okay.
Kisana Secondary School?
Yes, the one
I
from
can't
Chisana.
hear you.
When they have asked you to use less than, not more than, or use not more than, or use about. Let me say, use about 100 words, or not more than, and I exceed those words, and I get marks filled.
Teacher Deborah, I don't seem to have got that question properly. I don't know if you had
Well,
them.
I had her. She's asking, probably we should say about the words not more than, in about, or not exceeding. So if they go against the instruction, what happens?
Like I have said, people, if you decide to write a little more or a little less, it is okay. But if you go way beyond, it might not be in your favor. Try to stay within the range that has been given to you. I'm not going to say that you're going to be penalized because this is the first time that the curriculum is going to be assessed nationally. So I don't want to lie to you about what is going to happen. But if they have given you a word limit, please try as much as possible to stay near it. Either you're slightly below or slightly above. Like I have talked about 100 words, if that's what they've told you to use, try to stay within 90 if you're going less, or 110 if you're going more. Don't write 200. Besides, that space won't even be there because sometimes the lines that are given to you kind of limit you on how much you should write. But maybe a trick that I need to give you as students, usually on average, that line of the UNEB paper carries about, if you have a normal handwriting, carries about 8 words. So that means that if you have 100 words, try to stick within 12 lines That should give you about the 100 that is needed, okay? Do not go overboard and write 15 or 20. Okay, 15 might not be so bad, but 20 would be very, very off the limit that has been given to you. So kindly just try and use your discretion to know how much you should write. And the reason you have a rough copy is for you to be able to edit in the rough copy so that when it comes to the fair copy, you're roughly within the limit that has been set for you. For me, the most important thing really is for you to be able to pick out the facts so that you're able to write your summary, because that shows that you can actually summarize. Okay? So the first thing really to think about is, how am I going to extract these points, or which points are needed? Once you do that, there is no way the word limit will fail well, there's no way you'll fail to achieve the word limit. Okay? So try to focus on picking out the points.
Thank you, Teacher Teddy. There is another hand. I'm unmuting Mother Kevin. Mother Kevin, please ask.
I have a question that if you have written your summary and the time has cut you off and you have written only a rough copy, will that person be able to achieve the points? And then if your points are not in order and you have written them, maybe you have started from the last one, will you be considered?
Okay. Thank you for that question. Now, when you're writing your points, please start in the order in which they have been given to you. Don't start from the last one. It's like if you're going to, I don't know what. If you're going to do an activity, you don't begin from the end. You begin from the start. So write your points in the order in which they are given to you in the passage, even in your rough copy, so that when it's time for you to transfer to the fair copy, even if you're caught up by time, somehow you'll just keep writing because you already know that I wrote my points in order. So you kind of finish whatever you are writing. Whatever you do, please start in the order in which the points have been given to you in the passage. Even when you're writing your title, I was going to come to that a little bit later. Make sure that you have it for the rough copy and you also have it for the fair copy, so that when it comes to copying the things down, it becomes very easy for you to transfer. When you do the rough copy very roughly, it wastes your time, and if time catches up with you, then you're in problems. So please try as much as possible to write the points in the order in which they are given. I'm going to ask that we first finish this slide for now, so that we ask questions when really I wasn't going to talk about them. Then the people who are writing on the screen, it's quite unfortunate, but please don't make us go to measures of just muting you and keeping you quiet. This is supposed to be an interactive session, but it can only be interactive if we are also disciplined. So people whose hands are up, allow me to first finish this slide, and then I'm going to get back to your questions. Thank you very much. Okay. So I had talked about the fact that we shouldn't expect a direct question. The question will be scenario based. And then make sure that you write both the fair and rough copy. So begin with your rough copy, do all your editing from there. Make sure it also has a title, so that when it comes to writing your fair copy, it is the title that you write first. And then you can get into writing your points in one paragraph. So don't forget those basic rules that your teachers have been telling you in class. You must have one paragraph, and a paragraph is always indented a few centimeters away from the margin, and then you write all your points together as they come one after another. Then also as you write, make sure that your sentences are proper sentences. Don't have commas throughout the paragraph. That is wrong. Use the English that you have learned. Write a proper sentence. Maybe the maximum number of points you can put in one sentence should be 3. So have 1 comma and a conjunction in your sentences, and keep writing until you get to the end. So write both copies. Make sure you edit in your rough copy. Make sure you have that title, and the title comes from the question. So for example, the sample question you're seeing on your right, the advantages of vocational. That is supposed to be your title. Okay, so the question should guide you on what title you should write. Don't get the question out of the blue. Use the question use what is in the question to guide you on what title you should have. Okay. Then of course, the very first sentence you should write is a topic sentence. I think this one, the teachers have told you a lot about it. So if they're asking you for the advantages of vocational institutions, that is how you should start. Okay, the advantages of vocational institutions include, or one of the advantages of vocational school is, and then you put it. So make sure that your paragraph begins with a topic sentence. And then of course, we've already said that you have to pick out all the points that you see, because the scores are going to be awarded in ranges. So if the passage has about 20 points, you'll find that someone who has written between 15 to 20 points is a person, for example, who might get a 3 as their score. And then if for you, you have maybe 12 or 10, then you might get a 2. So pick out all the points that you see so that you're at an advantage of getting the maximum scores. Remember, this curriculum is about what you can do. So try as much as possible to get everything that you can see and put it on paper. And of course, because it's an English exam, you must ensure that you use correct English. So write proper sentences. The business of just putting the points is wrong. It must be a full sentence. So instead of saying, maybe you begin by saying vocational school enables people to start their own businesses, full stop. And then your next point is, it helps people to use their hands. And you leave it at that, and you go to the next point. Now, that is not a full sentence. So you must make sure you have sentences that make meaning. So ensure that you use correct English. Ensure that you punctuate properly. Where the comma should be, put a comma. Where there's supposed to be a full stop, please put a full stop. So the summary that you have studied in class, please use it to answer this question so that you get the maximum scores. Okay. I think before we get into a sample, maybe I need to take a question or two. Teacher Deborah, any hands? Or Dravo?
Yes, Teacher Teddy. Bravo, I've unmuted. Unmute. I don't know why your Bravo is not unmuting. Rugashari.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening to you.
Yeah, this is Evelyn from Odrag. I just wanted to know whether if you write your heading and there's the full stop in a capital letter, you can put a full stop. Whether you can put a full stop.
If you write
A heading using capital letter and put a full stop. Yeah.
Evelyn, are you talking about a title?
Yeah, I'm like, yeah.
Yes.
After writing a heading, is it advisable for you to write for you to put a full stop?
in the title, no, it's not necessary. Okay, in the title, you don't need to have a full stop.
Lukashari, please.
Another question. Who is that? Another question.
Yes, we are getting you. Teacher Teddy, let me get another person.
Okay, there's someone here. I tell something.
Let them unmute.
Like that would have been
Let me move on to Gombe High School.
Okay.
The person is here, the ITEL person. Please go ahead.
Please go ahead and ask. Teacher Deborah. Teacher Deborah, I don't hear what you're saying.
Gombe High School. There is a person asking.
Please go ahead.
I was asking if it's okay to substitute a group of words with a single word.
If you're not changing the facts, it is okay. Please remember that summary is about facts, okay? So once you change the facts, then you're losing the point. So try as much as possible to leave the facts the way they are supposed to be. The other words can be joined, but where you have facts, let us try and leave them the way they are. Okay.
I have another question. I have another.
Please go ahead.
Is when you're writing a title of the passage, is it okay if you put a full stop?
Please ask that again.
Are you supposed to write like in capital letters and then you put a full stop at the end?
When you're writing the title?
Yes.
You don't need to put a full stop. Just have your capital letters if that is what you decide. Just write the capital letters of your title. The advantages of cohabiting, and you stop it at that. Okay? So a title doesn't need a full stop.
Okay, Saint Leonard.
Yes, St. Leonard Secondary School.
I'm afraid we are not getting them. As
Deborah, maybe we had better move on because now some of the people are not asking and get their
there
hands.
is Metu Secondary School. Their hand was up earlier. I think we should end with that one.
Okay.
Okay, I wanted to know
whether in writing the rough copy, are you available to write to line the points?
Teacher Deborah, did you get that?
Yes, Teacher Teddy, they're asking if it is okay to outline points in a rough copy.
It is okay to outline the points in a rough copy, but my advice is that you write your rough copy in paragraph form, because when you're caught up with time, it will become very hard for you to find words to join your sentences and lines so that they now fit into the word limit that you've been given. It is best that you write your paragraph right from the start in your rough copy, edit it, get the correct number of words so that when it comes to transferring, you're just transferring very fast. When you begin to list in the rough copy, it becomes hard for you, especially when you get caught up with time, to write a proper summary. So it is best that you write a paragraph from the start. Try and practice. You'll find that it's easier to work with. Yes,
I am requesting, yes, Teacher Teddy. Let me unmute them, but I'm requesting those who can type in the chat to send their questions there so that we deal with all the questions.
Okay.
Yes. Please unmute.
That is a good one, so that we can move on.
Can you type your question? Come.
St. Aloysius? Wow. People, please put your questions in the chat, because I think we are wasting a bit of time. We are almost halfway the time that we have, and we have only dealt with one aspect. Okay, so I want us to read through this. This is like a sample short passage on a passage that can actually feature. Remember, for the summary, most of the passages that you're going to get are actually factual passages. Now, this is one on skin whitening or skin bleaching or lightening. Tisha Deborah, should we get someone to read, or you would like to read for us?
Let them read so that they practice.
Okay. Is it okay if you pick someone to do that?
I don't know whether the hands that are up want to read. Lolin, is it Lolin? Lolins, please unmute and read. Lolins, are you there? Or we could get Central View High School.
Okay, the person from Central View, please go ahead.
Should I read, Teacher Teddy? Because
I think so. Time is not our best ally.
Looking at saving time.
Yes, read the summary.
Teacher Deborah, are you still on?
Yes, let me read. Skin whitening also known as skin lightening and skin bleaching, is the practice of using chemical substances in an attempt to lighten the skin or provide an even skin color by reducing the melanin concentration in the skin. Several chemicals have been shown to be effective skin whitening, while some have proven to be toxic or have questionable safety profiles. This includes mercury compounds, which may cause neurological problems and kidney problems. Recent tests in the world show that some skin lightening products have dangerous levels of mercury. Being exposed to the mercury in these products could cause serious health problems. People who use skin products containing mercury have been found to have elevated mercury levels in their hair, blood, and urine. Mercury can damage the kidneys, affect the nervous system, or cause pain or rashes. Pregnant women and women of childbearing age should avoid exposure to mercury. Unborn babies, infants, and children are very sensitive to mercury. Even when pregnant women do not show symptoms of mercury exposure, it can affect the unborn children.
Okay, thank you very much, Teacher Deborah. So this is just like quarter of a passage, just to get us a feel of what it means. So here, the task. Remember, I said the question will not be direct. So your friend is not happy about her dark skin. She seems to think that it stops people from admiring her, so she's considering skin lightening. You want to prevent her from doing so. Use the passage above to show her the dangers of skin lightening. Use 50 words. So expect passages about challenges that are in the world around us. I think you've realized that in the recent past in Uganda, very many dark-skinned women who have beautiful skin are not proud of their skin and are making it lighter, to the extent that we have people who get injections, who go for drips, etc., or use skin products that destroy their skin. So it is a problem that we have in Uganda and the world over. So this kind of passage would be addressing a societal challenge. And that's why they will look for passages like this, so that now you can actually see that summary is applicable in normal life. Because here, you just now be expected to pick out the dangers of skin lightening. So, like we have said previously, our title comes from the question. So our title would start from this point, the dangers of skin lightening. That would be our title. And then we can go ahead to talk about the various dangers, the way we see them. When you look at this passage and you look at the first sentence, you'll find that there's practically no danger that is seen in this first sentence. But when you continue to read, okay, you'll find several chemicals have been shown to be effective in skin whitening, while some have proven to be toxic or have questionable safety profiles. Now, when you look at this sentence, it might seem like there's no danger. But when you closely look and they talk about the chemicals that prove to be toxic or have questionable safety profiles, then you begin to see that maybe there's actually a point. So you need to be very careful as you're picking out your points so that you don't miss the main points. So dangers of skin lightening, then the chemicals that are used have proven to be toxic or they have questionable safety profiles. Okay, so that could be like your first 2 points. When you continue to read, it says this includes mercury compounds, which may cause neurological problems and kidney problems. When you read this sentence, you realize that there's an example here that some of you would rush to include, yet it's not important. The danger that is evident here is that they may cause neurological problems and kidney problems. So skin lightening may cause neurological problems and kidney problems. Now, I have underlined some of these words because some people would be tempted to change them. You shouldn't, because these are facts. Even if you know that neurological probably refers to the nerves, don't write may cause nerve problems. Leave it the way it is. So you need to pick out your points slowly by slowly. You need to pick your points slowly by slowly and get the right points out. Okay, I hope that is clear. So I was just trying that out for the first paragraph. So for the other paragraphs, you can actually try out and see which points you'd have to get. Okay, so that is exactly how you'd be picking out your points. You must read the passage and then slowly you go analyzing sentence by sentence and you see, does it answer your question or is it something that actually does not apply to what is being asked? And then of course, we've been talking about the word limit. So you'll find that you might be given word limits. Now, because this says 50 words, that means that if you were to write out this summary, then you can't go beyond 6 lines. 6 lines is just about what is expected of you. So please keep in mind that easy way of being able to count the number of words that you need. Okay? So I think that's about it for summary. Teacher Deborah, I don't know if there are any questions in the chat that we need to look at.
Maybe we take a few hands. There are no questions in the chat.
Okay.
Ngabirano Alan, please unmute.
Okay,
Alan, please be louder than that.
I was trying to ask if you cross through the rough copy after you're done with it, or you just leave it.
If you do what?
I was trying to inquire
If you go through the rough copy.
Yeah, you cross or you leave it.
You must go through the rough copy for you to edit it. Huh?
And then I'm asking if you should cross it after you're done
and then
with
the
it.
what?
I'm asking if you should cross through, like you cross it.
Cross it out.
Yeah, you cross it so that you left
No,
with
you
the
don't
rough.
cross out. Please don't cross out the rough copy. Just write it and leave it. Don't cross it out. Okay? Just write it and leave it there. Then write your fair copy.
Madonna High School, your hand has also been up for the longest time. Madonna, please unmute.
Hello.
Please go
Yes,
ahead
we are
and speak.
getting you.
Should a title start from the margin or start as a paragraph?
Should the what?
Should the title start from a margin or as a title, as a paragraph?
People, the title is a title, okay? Whether you're going to write it as a paragraph or at the margin, it stands out because it's in capital letters. So don't worry about where you have started from. The nearer the margin, the better for you. Okay? But on its own, it already stands out. You can choose to indent it, it's okay. That is, if you choose to write it like a paragraph. If you choose to write it as from the margin, it is still okay because the next line you will write will be the start of your paragraph. So the title will actually stand out. Remember, it's supposed to be in capital letters, so it will stand out. Okay, another question, please.
Yes. Title.
St. Mary's, kindly unmute. St. Mary's.
Is it
We are not getting you clearly.
Is it okay to write 49 words?
To write?
49 words instead of 50.
49 words instead of 50.
Yeah.
Okay. Your question is going to be answered.
It is very okay to write 49. I think I've talked about it can be a little less or a little more. Okay? So 49 would be okay. Teacher Deborah, is there someone still asking or we move on?
Jerry, I've asked you to unmute. Please unmute. Jerry, Willie. We are not getting you. Please speak louder.
I'm trying to say, usually when we're writing the summary,
yes, please.
We are sure that the number of points in the old format comes to about 20 points. So I'm trying to imagine of this one that is being asked in 50 words. And if I look at the points, I am not then sure that how many points must I extract from this type of a passage.
Okay. When I was starting to go through this passage, I said I picked like quarter of it. This is not a full passage. That is why I reduced the number of words to 50, right? But that being said, I also said earlier that when they're scoring the summary, the scoring will be done in ranges, not like the old system where you'd have 20 points and you needed to have the 20 points and you'd get 20 out of 20. Here, yes, the 20 points might be there or even more, but then they'll give ranges. The way you've seen it being done, even as we were scoring along the 4 years as well, 4 or 5 years. So if there are 20 points, for example, they'll give a range of 15 to 20. That kind of person will have a score of 3. At least they can extract the points, because you're looking at the ability of a student to extract points or to summarize, extract points from a factual passage. So they'll give ranges. 15 to 20 gets a score of 3. Then maybe 8 to 14 gets a score of 2. If someone has maybe 2 to 7, then they get a score of 1. If someone only identifies 1 point, then they'll also be able to score that one. So unlike the old system where you had to have 20 points, this one is slightly different. Yes, the 20 or more points can be there, but the scoring becomes different. I hope I've answered your question. So this particular passage is not a full one. It's just for explaining purposes. Okay.
St. Charles Ranga, as the rest of us type our questions in the chat so that we save time, kindly write your question. We'll be answering it from there.
St. Charles Rwanga, we're waiting for you.
Yes. We were inquiring.
Yes, please.
We are inquiring of the tense used when you're writing summary.
Of the what?
Tense. The tense used when you're writing a summary.
Teacher Deborah, I'm failing to get that word.
Tense. Tense in which to write.
Oh.
Past tense, present tense. Yes.
Now that depends on the question. That is why I have said we need to pay attention to the scenario that we've been given. So if for example, what's in front of you, use the passage above to show her the dangers of skin lightening. That means that it should be a present tense passage. If someone gives you a passage and maybe says, one of your friends has done the same mistake that the person in the passage did. Maybe okay, let me not look for a specific example. But they tell you one of your friends has made the same mistake. Tell her what she would have done differently. Now, when someone says what she would have done differently, by showing her maybe the disadvantages of whatever it is in the passage. That means that when you come to doing, you're actually going to change your tense to suit the question. So the question will determine what tense you have to write in. So you need to read it carefully. If it's telling you about the past, then you write in past tense. If it's telling you about the present, then you use present tense. If it's giving you the future aspect, the same thing still applies. So please don't do cram work that it must be in present tense. The question should guide you on which tense to use. I hope I've answered. Teacher Deborah, are we still continuing with questions or we move on?
I think we'll have about 3 questions at most and close the questioning section. People, please post your questions in the chat. Premier High School, unmute and ask, please.
I would like to know how to count words.
How to come to?
How to count words in a summary.
Okay, when you're looking at a summary passage, You count word by word. But I gave a trait so that you determine how much to write even before you start writing. So on average, a normal line takes about 8 words, on average. So if they've asked you for 80 words, that means that it would be wise that you stick within 10 lines. If they've asked you for 100 words, that means you kind of stick between 11 or 12 lines. But remember that you must count word for word. Okay, I hope that helps you. Teacher Deborah, the last question. We need to move.
St. Elizabeth Girls, SS, please unmute. I'll get your questions shortly. I'm responding to them in the chat. Continue sending them in.
Okay.
St. Elizabeth?
We are online. If you're counting the words, are you supposed to count words? Are you supposed to count word by word, or you count the words in the first line, then multiply it by the number of lines you have written?
In summary, we count word by word. People, word by word is what we count in summary, okay? The other kind of counting is just to guide you on how many lines to use. You use it, that one of counting the first line and then multiply, that is for your creative writing. Summary, please count word by word. Okay, so for now, people who still have their hands up, please put your question in the chat. We need to move because at 6, we should be finishing. We've not yet started section B. So it's still in section A. Like I said, we have 2 passages. One will be the summary, then the other will be the comprehension passage. And this passage can actually be on anything. It can be a story, it can be factual, it can be expository, it can be a debate of some sort, but in continuous written form. Or it could even be a non-continuous something. And then you asked questions about it. So expect a passage on anything in this part. And then the questions that you can have a question testing knowledge. So you're just expected to look at what is before you and transfer something. Maybe they ask, who is so-and-so's friend in the passage? Of course, with a scenario there. And then you just have to pick that information. So it can be on the knowledge, it can be on your understanding of what is in the text, because it's a comprehension passage. It might be a question that is asking you to evaluate a situation. For example, do you think this is the best thing for so-and-so to do? So those think questions that are kind of making you evaluate the situation and see what to do next. Expect some of those. It could even be a question on character. Maybe you have a character who's very stubborn and cheeky in the passage, and they're asking you, maybe they tell you something like, we usually can say what people are from their behavior, from the way they behave. What do you think of so-and-so in the passage? So there you're supposed to come up with those character traits. Maybe James is mischievous, or James is playful, or, those questions that actually ask you to evaluate. It could be a sad story, and they ask you, imagine you are in the character's shoes, the person who was in the passage. How would you feel? So there you're evaluating and putting yourself in that person's shoes, so that you begin to say, maybe I'd be sad, I'd be very annoyed at so-and-so. So you're looking for answers, but these answers are coming from your head, but you're using the passage to guide you to the right answer to write. So you need to know that the questions are going to be very different from what the old curriculum was. They're testing you on your knowledge, your understanding, the way you evaluate situations. They're testing you on prediction. They can ask, maybe in a passage, there's been a fight. And then they ask you, how do you think maybe so and so would appear or would say to the police if they came after this? So you're predicting something that is likely to happen. And as you give your prediction answers, please try to stay on the correct side of the law. Try to ensure that your answer is kind of moral, like it's on the good side. Don't defend thieves, for example. You should, if it's a prediction question, you try and give answers that are positive, because remember that as you've been studying this curriculum, there are values that you've been expected to pick. So these values is when they'll be tested. Have you actually learned that people should live in harmony, that it is bad to fight? Have you learned that it is good to protect the environment? So you can't talk about, things that are against the environment and things like that. So whatever you have learned in all these years that you've been doing the new curriculum, please keep those values, keep those skills, because you're going to need them in the paper, especially when you're answering the comprehension passage. Then many of us have been saying, rewrites are no longer existent. That is not true, okay? They will not come the way they've been coming for the old curriculum, but they can be asked in the passage, okay? So someone gets 2 sentences from the passage and maybe they tell you to join them. Or they get a sentence from the passage and then they tell you, rewrite beginning with this. So all those aspects that your teachers are teaching you in class, please keep them. Don't say that, they want to be grammar. That is not true. The proverbs that you have been studying in class, please keep them, because you can have a passage that has a particular proverb and they tell you to give its meaning. So you need to know. Don't throw away your proverbs. Don't throw away your idioms. You will need them in the paper. So there will be grammar aspects in the comprehension passages or passage that you will get in your exam. Okay, so please read the passage very well and destroy it. Don't let it destroy you. You should be the one to destroy all those questions that will come on the passage. So some you'll just be transferring knowledge. Others you'll have to evaluate and analyze and then write your answer. Others you'll have to predict something that might happen. But as you do all these things, keep your values and skills and etc. as part of your answers, okay? Because in your curriculum, we've been teaching you so that you can solve problems, so that you're better at solving issues. So make sure that you're doing that even in the paper. I hope that is okay. Okay, I don't know if there are any questions, but as I wait for that to happen, allow me share a passage here just to bring some of these questions to life. Just a moment. Okay. Part of this paper was what was in the sample paper, but allow me to pick on a passage that wasn't there. Okay, So in this particular passage, maybe we get someone to read so that the questions can actually come to life. Okay. Teacher Deborah, you pick someone.
Paul Chams, could you please read for us? Unmute and read for us. If they're not ready, maybe Wuyengo SS. Could you, Paul, are you reading for us?
Yes, I'm reading.
All right, thank
Good,
you.
thank you. Please go ahead.
Read the following passage and attend the tasks presented. Malala Yousafzai was born in Mingara, Pakistan on July 12, 1997. Her father, a teacher who ran a school for girls in their village, was committed to Malala's education. Malala loved school, but when the Taliban seized their village, they forbid the people there to do many things they had formerly enjoyed. Television and music were banned and girls were no longer permitted to attend school. Anyone who destroyed these edicts was punished harshly. Malala spoke out publicly about how girls had the right to an education. She became a target of the Taliban. One day in October 2012, when she was on the bus on her way home from school, a man wearing a mask got on the bus and asked, "Who is Malala?" He then shot her in the head. Malala woke up after 10 days in the hospital. During that time, her story had spread around the whole world and people everywhere were praying for her to get well. She underwent several surgeries and months of rehabilitation before she was able to return home to her family, now living in the United Kingdom. Malala has chosen to make the most of her situation as a public figure. And today, she continues to fight for girls to have the right to an education. Working with her father, she established the Malala Fund, which helps girls achieve their dreams. For this work, Malala was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in December 2014, making her the youngest ever Nobel, laureate? I don't know. She graduated from Oxford University and today spends her time traveling and supporting educators and activists on behalf of girls struggling to go to school.
Okay, thank you very much for reading.
Welcome.
So we're doing this just to practice and see the kind of setting that you would expect. When you look at the questions here, who took over Malala's village and declared girls could not go to school? Now that is a knowledge question. You're just looking at the passage and realizing that, okay, they are talking about the Taliban, probably. Then when they ask you, why was Malala shot? There you begin to think, okay, the questions are getting a little bit harder because in the passage, it is not said that she was shot for this, this, and this. So now you're beginning to understand so that you can actually answer. So the first question is kind of a knowledge question. Now here you need to have understood for you to be able to say why she was shot. Can someone give us an answer to that question? Yes, Gombe High School. I hope you're giving an answer. Teacher Deborah, can they unmute?
Yes, they can unmute.
Malala was shot because she spoke out publicly about how girls had the right to an education.
Please say that again.
Malala was shot because she spoke out publicly about how girls had the right to an education.
Very good. So you'll find that if you have not understood the passage, that might not be a very easy question for you to answer. So the questions will move from simple to hard. Now, this is the grammar part I was telling you. She underwent several surgeries and months of rehabilitation before she was able to return home to her family, now living in the United Kingdom. Rewrite beginning, she was able. Okay? So you won't have a section that gives you only rewrites, but the rewrites can be incorporated in the comprehension passage. I'd like someone to give us a possible answer for this. Teacher Deborah, do you mind choosing someone?
Brain Set High School. Please unmute. Brain Set. They're not ready. Gulu High School. Could you please unmute? Gulu High School. I don't know whether. Let me go to St. Michael High School. Are you ready, Gulu? They've disappeared. St. Michael, kindly. Your microphone is open, but we don't seem to get you. Are you there? Sorry, but we are not getting you. So, Metu High School, Moyo. Teacher Teddy, I don't know whether the problem is with the question. Someone is asking if we can zoom in.
Zoom in. Let me see. I'm over zoomed now. Okay, is that better?
Yes, it's better though. Oh, okay, yeah, the questions are visible. So I think people, you can now see the questions very well. So Kanjuchi, senior secondary, could you please respond? Unmute. Yes, there they go.
She was able to graduate from Oxford University and today spends her time traveling and supporting educators and activists on behalf of girls struggling to go to school.
She was able to return to her
Graduate.
family from the United Kingdom after undergoing several surgeries and months of rehabilitation.
Okay. That is also okay. So you realize that the question is probably focusing you on how to use before and after. That is something that we study along the way, I think in senior 3. This is an aspect of grammar that has been incorporated in the comprehension passage. So please be sure that there will be an aspect of grammar somewhere in your paper. Don't neglect the rewrites that your teachers have been teaching you. Okay, so when you look at part D, do you think it was worthwhile for Malala to go against the Taliban? Give a reason for your answer. Now, this kind of answer is not in the passage, but because you have been trained to think outside what is in front of you and solve problems, you should be able to answer this, okay? And then certain things would guide you, because if someone went against the Taliban and is still able to graduate, that means that probably it was a worthwhile thing, okay? So your answer should be on the positive side. That is what I was talking about. Incorporate the values that you have picked from all the topics that you have been looking at and use them to enable you answer questions. When you look at the last question, it is a prediction question, okay? When you educate a girl, you have educated the nation. What do you think would happen if girls were not educated? So that means that ideally you should give the negative things that would happen if girls were not educated. So depending on the questions that you will get, you will be expected to draw from all the things that you have been learning along the way. There's generic skills, the skills themselves, the values, you know, the cross-cutting issues. You'll be expected to draw from all those things that your teachers have been teaching you in class, okay? So that is why there's a slight difference between the old curriculum and what you people are studying. So please keep your mind open to get various questions that will kind of test your thinking ability and how you can use your thinking ability and the English that you have studied to be able to answer questions. Okay, so that is just a quick example on the comprehension passage. I think now we can move on to the last section.
Excuse me, Teacher Teddy.
Yes, please.
There is a question that has kept coming up in the chat to do with the feelings. How do we describe feelings? Why don't we use learned? How do I state feelings? Could you briefly talk about the feelings so that everyone benefits?
Okay, I can do that. But Teacher Deborah, I also think you can do that. Okay, so when we are looking at feelings, we don't use the word feel. Let us start from there. So if the passage is about something that is annoying, then you can say, I am annoyed, or this character in the passage is annoyed. Maybe so-and-so is happy. If there's a person in the passage who's happy, then you just say, maybe Frank is happy, instead of saying Frank feels happy. So don't use the word feel, don't use the word feelings when you're talking about your feelings. Just say what the person is going through. So when you look at the feelings question, you focus on what exactly the person is going through without using the word feeling or without using the word feels. Okay? I hope I've answered that question. Teacher Deborah, you can add something. Okay?
Thank you. Someone was asking why we don't use the word learned. You realize that the moment you bring in the word learned, that is a lesson you're picking. It's not like every lesson that you pick is a feeling, okay? So the two are quite different. When they ask for feelings,
You know, this is about your emotions. It is not just about what you've learned from probably the way you have felt, but how you feel is what you're supposed to write without using the word I feel, because that is what Teacher Teddy has just explained, okay? So I am continuing to elaborate in the chat, but I think the question has been answered. Thank you, Teacher Teddy.
Now someone has asked about the meanings of words. That is also a possible question in the comprehension passage. For example, meanings of words could be particular lines. Let me use something that was in the sample paper. Just focus a bit on the screen. Okay, when you look at that passage that was in the sample paper, there was a proverb. Not all that glitters is gold, okay? So they can ask, how does this word or proverb fit the message of the text? So the usual kind of setting would be give the meaning of the following words or phrases. But now, I think you can see the change. How does this word or how does this proverb fit the message of the text? So that means that you're giving its meaning, but in context, in line with what is in the passage, okay? So still then, you have to go back and put that word in the sentence in which it comes from, and then you give its meaning. You fit it into the message of the text. So it is possible to get a vocabulary question that is part of grammar. Okay, so you can also expect that in your exam. Okay, so you can be asked about the meaning of words or lines, but the way it is asked is quite different. So when they ask, how does this word fit the message? Then you know they're asking you for the meaning, but in line with what is in the passage. I hope I've answered that question. Allow me to move on to the last section. So we have looked at section A in totality. I will repeat, expect 2 passages. The first one will be summary. Then the second one can be a normal comprehension passage, but it can also be an uncontinuous something where they give you a notice or an advert and ask you questions about it, okay? So try to keep practicing at school and with your teachers. Some of these things are already in our book, so try as much as possible to keep practicing and answering the questions. Please allow me to move to section B. Okay. So in section B is where we have the writing. So ideally, what was our paper 1 in the old curriculum is now the section B in the new curriculum. Remember, you do one paper, and that one paper has the summary and then the comprehension text, and then you do section B, which is the writing. Now, section B can have either the creative writing, where you're actually writing a composition, or it can have the functional writing, okay? So you'll have choice. Choice could be you're doing 2 functional numbers. Choice could be you're doing 1 creative writing number. You just make sure you read the instructions in your paper so that you don't make a mistake. But I know that here you'll have a bit of choice. Either you're choosing 1 number or 2. okay, depending on what your instructions say. So in the writing, I have started with the functional writing. So all those things that you have learned from senior one, remember that very first topic when you were looking at I think my personal life and family. There were particular writing aspects that you had to pick there. There was a dialogue, you know, then you'd move to the next topic, I think finding information or something like that. There were things to do with a report. So all those things that you have learned from senior one are going to be very important when you're looking at this section. And you will find that in the paper, they won't tell you write a speech. No, they will just tell you address a gathering. So if someone decides to use a speech, they will mark them. If someone decides to use dialogue, if you feel that can address a gathering, you will still get to be marked. But of course, as you choose these things, you need to choose them with wisdom, okay? So for example, if they tell you to address a gathering, then you can't write a will to address a gathering. So the questions that our teachers have exposed us to, please make sure they help you guide whatever you're going to choose to write. Now, what you see on the screen are possible things that you can be asked on. Maybe your friend is bored and sick. She's at home and she would like to read one of the books on the shelves, and you have read one of them. Interest her in reading the book as she is getting better. So that means that you can narrow down on a book review, for example, and you write a review for her on a particular book so that she gets interested and can get something to read. You can even interest her by drawing a poster, right? So you draw a poster on the book and, you know, you give it the back page and you're giving it all these nice words and things that it is about. So you pick on any mode or any type of writing that you think will best pass on your message. So unlike the old curriculum where they would specify and tell you, now write a speech or write a letter or write a memo, in this curriculum, you will not be told what to use. But your teachers have exposed you to many of these things. So you see what fits the question, and then that is what you use to write, bearing in mind that you're working for particular scores. So where you feel that there's an aspect that won't get you maximum scores, don't use it. Okay? So the question will determine what you're going to write on. I hope that is clear. So revise all these things. Revise how to write your speech. Make sure you know what do you start with, the protocol, the, you know, greeting, you introduce yourself, etc. As you have been told in class. Revise how to write your letters, both the formal letter and the informal letter. And of course, the question should be able to guide you which way to go. If you're writing, if they're asking you to write to your parent, then there's no way you can really write a formal letter. If they're asking you to write to your head teacher, then you know that you can't write an informal one, even if your head teacher is your mother, okay? So you use your discretion to judge which things you're actually going to write. So practice how to write your memos, how to write notices, reports. And please remember that under report writing, you have 3 types of reports. Please know each one of those. Are you writing a general report? Are you writing an investigative report? Okay. So please, the question should be able to guide you. know how to write a will, know how to write an announcement, know how to give directions, know how to write a book review, how to design a poster, how to write an email, a dialogue, how to design a card, whether it's invitation, graduation, etc. Know how to write a recipe. You remember recipe is part of S1 work. So please go back and revise all those things before you get to that month when you shall sit for your UNEB exam. Remind yourselves on how to write newspaper articles. Remind yourselves about adverts. I think your first encounter with an advert was in senior one. Which topic is that? At the market. I think that is where you first find an advert. So go back to all those aspects in your books. Please revise them and know that it is possible for any of them to come for your paper. The paper will not tell you what exactly is required, but it will expect you to choose from all the ones that you have learned, which one best conveys your message. And because this is functional writing, okay, you need to know the formats of those things that we have talked about on the previous slide. So for each aspect, know how they are written. How do they write a memo to so-and-so from so-and-so, the date, the subject. If it is a letter, where is your address? Where is the receiver's address? Where is the sender's address? Which side are you signing off, etc. So know the format of the particular aspect. Then know what content you're writing. And of course, the content comes from the question. So please don't forget that yours is scenario-based. So in giving the scenario, you will get the content on what you are supposed to write about. And that should be in whatever you're writing. Then even as you write, please focus on your language. Make sure you're using the correct tense. Your words are spelled correctly. Your grammar is good. Your punctuation, please don't forget your full stops, commas, exclamation marks, etc. Whatever you need to make your writing good, please use it. And then the register, okay, the words that you're using. For example, if you're writing a speech, there's no way you can finish writing it without talking about ladies and gentlemen. You know, the language is very formal. My name is so-and-so, that introduction. Okay, then when you're addressing the people, the language that you use, okay? So please keep in mind that as they're scoring your writing, they will focus on the format, they will focus on the content, they will focus on your use of language. Those three things are very key. So as you write, please bear them in mind. Okay. So for functional writing, it is very possible to ask you to have those two questions and you choose one. Or they might tell you to do both, depending. I am also just like you waiting to see. But I know that you'll have a choice in the first, rather in section B, you'll have a choice to choose from. It won't be compulsory like section A will be. Okay. Okay. I want us to first talk about creative writing before we get questions. Teacher Deborah, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here. Just that the chat is burning up.
Do you want to take over on the creative writing as I handle whatever is in the chat?
Okay, I'm going to be quite fast. So I hope everyone can clearly see what is on the screen, what is shared. To start with, when we talk about creative writing, I imagine everyone knows that you're creating something. So if you're creating something, questions usually are in 3 dimensions, and that is why we have types of writing on the screen. So you could be asked, for example, to write a story. There you are narrating. So that is why we have type 1 as narration. Write a story basing on a given scenario as the question may state. So what is expected of you when you're writing a narration? In a narration, you know you have to develop a story. Always start by planning what you're going to write. You don't just bump into a question. Read the question, understand it, and then plan how you're going to write it out. Do not write, for example, and get into the middle. You have heard of people who say, then I died. Then the person who died continues to write. So you have to really organize before you start writing. You should have characters in your story. Who is a character? These are the people you use. My sister, your family, brother, or any other person that is a part of your story is the person we call a character. Then they should be in a given setting. So if you're talking about your home or a home setting, or if it's a wedding that you attended, the place is what we call the setting, okay? Someone is addressing a question to me. Teacher Ted is attending to you. Kindly follow, and then you ask at the end, okay? So if you have the story, you have the setting, you have the characters, you can go ahead and start narrating in a logical manner so that a person can follow your story from beginning to end. Even if you have chosen to start from where the story ends, you have to show why you have started with the end by unfolding the story systematically, okay? Then there are stories which are for persuasion or questions that require you to write in a persuasive manner, okay? When we talk about persuasive writing, we want you to convince a reader that what you're talking about is in fact the truth and beyond the truth. You're choosing this side and supporting it. And as you write, you're also persuading the person who is reading to side with you. That is the language that is persuasive, okay? And in persuasive writing, as we have highlighted in this slide, you aim to move the reader to support a point, okay? Then you often begin with a statement of the author's position, which is your position, okay? Before you can present any arguments for that question. For example, if you want to say that there should not be single-sex schools, okay? Start by stating your own position so that, you know, we know which position you are for, and then persuade us to join that side that you're writing about. Then you have to make sure your points really impact and give meaning. So that other point says that you arrange the points for maximum impact on the audience. You give your points in such a way that you really, you know, attract a person to your side, because that is what persuasion is all about. Then usually combine logical and emotional appeals designed to win over a specific
audience. Make sure that whatever you're writing about does not, contrast what you believe. So if you believe single-sex schools are good, and then at some point you start saying, but they are bad, even if I am saying they are good, there you're already losing the point, or you're losing the sense of that writing per se. Then where you have scenarios that require you to describe, for example, describe the perfect wedding, or when you attended a wedding, okay? I am just giving very brief questions, though you may find them in wider case scenarios, but kindly bear so that we do not, exhaust this. So if you're given to describe such a scenario, please focus on creating a single dominant impression, something that stands out. If it is about a person, a place, event, feeling, or idea, look at what is dominant, then build on that, okay? Descriptive writing requires that you choose words, images, and details that appeal to the senses of that person who is reading, okay? We should be able to feel, oh, this was really interesting, or this person ate a very tasty cake, through your description. So in creative writing, flowery language is a must, because, you're aiming at impressing, okay? You have to impress the person, you have to persuade the person, you're telling them about a story that needs to capture their attention, and that is supposed to be interesting and enjoyable. Then we need figurative language. I don't know whether someone could write in the chat what figurative language is all about. Here we are giving just an example of similes and metaphors. She looked like a goat. Anyone can imagine what that person looked like, okay? Or the other man was a beast, okay? So the person can still imagine, and we can know the context in which this person became a beast, okay? Then the chronological order, you have to write in a way that you make sense, not, picking on something, and then before we know it, as you're describing a person, you go to the room where the person is. Before we exhaust the room, you talk about other people who are there. You need to be logical in your writing. Then the exposition, because we have said there are 4 types of writing that we expect you to know. Exposition, presenting facts. You do not lie, because you're giving information, you're exposing the knowledge that you know. You're writing information that makes sense chronologically, okay? You define unfamiliar and technical terms. For example, if the question is talking about education, you really need to first define education so that we know what the subject that you're talking about is in particular, okay? If there are any unfamiliar terms, please elaborate on them so that the person who is looking at this paper is able to learn from what you're writing, even if they didn't know, and they are able to follow what you are writing. Then your personal opinion and values and judgments usually shouldn't come into expository writing, because, opinions are not facts, okay? So if you read the slide that has the summarized form of writing, the types of writing, you can be able to pick a few things that you can lean on when writing in the creative writing section. Thank you. I have been rapping, but I hope you have picked something. Teacher Teddy?
Yes, please.
Any question that I need to respond to generally?
Not really. I just see people complaining about the letters, but I know that whichever gadget you're using, you can actually make this bigger or smaller, because we are using a laptop to do this, and on PowerPoint presentations, you can't really enlarge it. So please use whatever gadget you're using to
zoom in.
To zoom in. Okay.
Maybe Teacher Teddy, there are
Yes,
quite a
please.
number of questions on the format. I think we'll just have to arrange and send in a few summarized formats.
Okay.
Because people are asking about the will, a book review, giving directions. So we cannot exhaust all that in the time we have today, but we can surely drop them in the groups. You'll be able to find the different formats that you can work with.
Okay. I actually think that we shall give a summarized something to Mr. Kaziba, so that your teachers can actually contact him to get some of these formats from him, or you can find them in the groups that you are on. So please try to get the formats, but that will be later. We couldn't have gone through them within 2 hours. I think for today, our work was really to expose you to what to expect in a paper, and allow me to actually remind you of a few things when you're writing creatively. So please remember to plan your writing. And then probably what I forgot to say is that if the number is on, if the section is on creative writing, it will be on creative writing. So the either or will be creative writing. If it's on functional, then it will be just testing functional. So please don't relax and say, for me, I will do composition. No, it is hard to know which one is going to come. So practice your creative writing, practice your functional writing, because no one knows what is actually going to come. We just know that you'll be choosing one of the numbers. So plan your writing, use all that colorful language your teachers have been telling you, the idioms, the proverbs, the vocabulary. Use the language that appeals to the 5 senses as you write. Make sure that you introduce your story or expose the challenge, develop it up to its conclusion or up to when you resolve the conflict that is in your story. Now, there's a sample question here of how your creative writing can come or can be asked. So no one will tell you write a composition, but you can get such a question. You organized a party for your friends at your home. One of your friends embarrassed themselves at the party. Write about what happened. So there you have to think of, what storyline am I going to take? What can my friend do that would embarrass them? And then how are we going to resolve that embarrassment? So you have to think through your story, and then you write it down. But as you write it down, you must resolve that embarrassment that your friend went through. Okay? So don't expect the usual questions. Expect certain differences in the paper. I wanted to give another example. Teacher Deborah, I hope you're looking through the chat to let me know. Then I'll come back to people who are putting up their hands.
Yes.
I just want to give maybe 2 more examples of possible ways in which the creative writing, rather the writing section B can be asked. So let us look at these 2. Okay, so your school has recently held a sports day event where your house emerged as the 3rd out of 6 houses. So your position was somewhere in the middle. During the sports season, you faced a few challenges that you think could have contributed greatly to your house's performance. As the house prefect, write to your house mistress or master about what transpired in the sports season. Now, transpired here can be replaced with what happened in the sports season. So when you look at this question, it is kind of open. You can choose to write a formal letter to your house mistress. You can choose to write a report to your house mistress. You can even choose to write an email to your house mistress telling her about what happened. So you realize that there are very many functional writing aspects that you can use to answer this particular question. Okay. Then you have this one. A student switched off lights during evening lessons. And of course, we all know what happens when power goes off. People are screaming, etc. So as probably there was chaos, your name was mentioned among the suspects of, you could have been the one who switched off the lights. So because of that, you were summoned to the disciplinary committee. Write your talk or chat with the chairperson disciplinary committee. So when you look at this question, of course, when you read write your talk or chat, okay, you realize that the best thing that could answer this could be a dialogue, right? A conversation. So ideally, you can use that. But someone else can decide to choose and write a composition. So they narrate their talk or chat with the chairperson, disciplinary committee. But that means that as you're narrating, you must have some direct speech in there. So the question that you have guides you on what you should have. Another person can even decide to use a speech. Okay? So the question guides you on what you can write. It won't point you to a particular spot, but using your discretion, you'll find that you pick the best thing to use, the best functional writing aspect to use to bring out the question, to answer the question. So you realize that there's a difference in the setting of the questions that you will be getting. Okay, so those are some samples that we could use for this lesson. I know that Mr. Kaziba will be sending these samples to you so that you continue to look at them and even develop your own. Teacher Deborah, are there any questions? I know that it is now supper time for some people. Other people want to go home. So I don't know what we think. Should we end it here?
Teacher Teddy, the questions so far are really to do with so many aspects that we may not be able to exhaust at the moment. But I don't know about the hands. First, I am going to lower all hands and then request that only a person with a burning question puts up their hand. Chistana Secondary School, please ask. They've disappeared. Paul Chams. We are going to have only a few questions because it's already time up, but continue posting the questions in the groups that you're in and we'll attend to you. Paul?
I would like to know, when writing the letter, do you skip a line, for example, the address, when writing the date? Do you skip the line? And remember, we're writing the slanting way. Do you skip the line for the date and after you put it forward for the other words?
When you're writing a letter, you only skip a line between the sender's address and the date. Is that the line that you're asking? Between the sender's address and the date. And the first word of your date should be at the same level as the first word of you, the sender's address. So I don't know if I've answered your question or you're actually asking something that I haven't answered.
Saturday, I think we take one more hand and then we call it a day. Ebenezer High School, please unmute. Ebenezer High School, are you there? Chinyara SS? Chinyara SS?
Yes. My question is, what is the limit of content you're supposed to give when responding to exposition questions? Like, what I mean is, if you are giving an answer about corruption, you can give about the effects, what brings it, where it occurs, who does it. So what is the limit of that content you're supposed to give when answering exposition questions?
By limit, are you talking about the word limit?
I'm trying to.
If by limit you're talking about the word limit, there'll always be guidance on the paper on how much you should be writing. But if by limit you mean how many examples are you supposed to give, as many as possible, okay? But keeping in mind that it's not only the examples that are earning you marks, but how do you express these examples? So please try to have as many points as possible, but as you have these points, the English that you use to express them should also be correct English. I hope that is answering your question. So for word limit, the guidance will be on the paper. So just read the instructions. Teacher Deborah?
There are still quite a number of hands. Should we take them on? Bale Chitio. Please unmute.
The format of writing. The format of writing and is
Okay, for the formats, just like you got information about this particular seminar, I'm going to request that we get back to Mr. Kaziba. We're going to give him some formats that we have, and then he'll be able to pass on what he can to you people. But also, I know that your teachers have these formats and they can take you through some of them. At least now you have an idea on which things can be asked. So we shall send what we can to Mr. Kaziba. Then for the rest, please discuss with your teachers. I know that they'll go through some of these things. Okay, thank you very much. There's a hand from Notre Dame High School. Please ask your question.
Good evening.
Good
We have
evening
a question. Minute is not inclusive.
Sorry?
Minute is not inclusive in section B.
All functional writing is inclusive. Minute, CV, biography, autobiography. I know that there are certain things that I left out, but I also know that you have covered them in class. So that list is big. That is why you saw at the end, there was ETC. So all those things, please revise them because you don't know when you will need that information. Like I have said, no one knows what is coming. But because they give you leeway, it is possible to use any aspect to answer the question. So please revise all those things. They are very
Teacher Teddy?
important. Yes, please.
There is also a question from Palabek Secondary School. If they can unmute and ask.
Okay.
Palabek?
Do we have?
Yes, please.
Do we also have to sign in creative writing?
Do we have to sign off on what?
In creative writing?
Yes.
No. Creative writing, you're writing stories. You don't have to sign off. You just do your writing until your conclusion. That's it.
Gombe High School, kindly unmute.
We're having a question that is it compulsory to write 6 paragraphs for letters?
Teacher, there were 6 paragraphs for what?
For letters.
No, it's not compulsory. It's up to you. Which kind of letter are you talking about? Because we have 2 types of letters. Okay.
We are getting you.
Sorry?
They've disappeared, I think.
Both letters.
Yeah, okay.
No, it's not compulsory to have 6 paragraphs. You write the number of paragraphs that you want, okay? Now, depending on the letter that you have, because if you're writing an application letter, then you can't say that you must have 6 paragraphs. In the first paragraph, you're just saying where you got the information from. Then in the second paragraph, you're introducing yourself and maybe talking about your positive attributes. Then you have a third paragraph probably where you talk about what good things you'll be bringing to the company. And then you can then talk about your education background and then say how you will be grateful if your application is considered. And that's it. So it depends on what you are writing about. It is not right to do cram work that in a letter you must have 6 paragraphs. That is not right. As long as you include whatever is supposed to be included, you're good to go. I won't say that you must have 6 paragraphs. I hope I've answered your question. So what you're comfortable with is what you go with.
Okay. Metu Secondary School, can we make the questions very brief so that we attend briefly to them and then depart? Metu, unmute.
Okay, is it possible when writing an official letter to write the sender's address and receiver's address on the same side?
It is very possible because if you have a question, maybe you're writing an apology letter to your headmaster. You're in the same school. Probably here is when I should say, please don't write the name of your school in your letter. Forge maybe Tree Secondary School. So there you can have both addresses similar. If you want to change your address, it is okay. Where you have a question that is telling you write a letter to, yes, please.
Your network had done.
Oh, sorry about that. So where you have a letter that's telling you write to your headmistress, write to your house mistress, write to your prefect, that means that the addresses can be the same, but you forge, you don't put the real name of your school. I hope that is clear.
St. Mary's, Ediofe, please unmute.
Madam, my question is that in creative writing, for example, doing the planning, the answer sheet that is presented for marking or not?
Teacher Deborah, I did not get that very clearly.
Neither did I. Kindly ask again. Please come again.
Madam, in creative writing, do we include the plans in the answer sheet that is presented for marking or we don't?
What I'm hearing is, do we put the plan in the answer? Is that what you're asking?
I'm asking whether
do we include the plan in the answer sheet? Is that the question?
Well, yes, you write it in your answer sheet, but behind, it shouldn't be part of your answer. You can plan in the answer sheet, in the UNEP booklet, but don't write it within your answer. Your plan should not be within your answer, but it can be within the UNEP booklet. Okay? Someone is asking, can I use my email address instead of the postal address? No, people, when you're writing a letter, it should be a postal address. Please don't use an email address. It should be a postal address. You only include your email address, maybe if you're writing an email, or even in your CV when you're writing your contacts. Okay. Pull out students, please unmute yourself.
Yes, unmuted. Yes, unmuted. Do you have anything to say?
Yes, I think Okosha girls, I don't know if I pronounced that right, but please ask your question.
Madam, is it necessary to introduce yourself when writing an essay?
No, when you're writing an essay, you don't have to introduce yourself. You only introduce yourself in a speech. Okay? So when you're writing an essay, maybe they've told you to write things for or against smoking. You don't have to introduce yourself. Okay? Teacher Deborah, please choose the last school because time has run out for me as well.
St. Thomas. St. Thomas, please unmute.
Madam, I wanted to know how do we conclude?
How do we conclude in what?
How do we conclude when writing a speech?
When writing a speech?
Yes.
I don't know. There's no definite way of concluding. Depending on what you're talking about, you can even conclude with a quotation. You can conclude by saying that I hope from my speech, someone has picked out a thing or two against stealing in school, or I hope that none of you will be involved in this bad habit, depending on what your speech is about. I don't know, there's no definite way of concluding, but you just make sure that in your conclusion, you're leaving something for the people to carry home, something that will stay in their minds to remind them about what you spoke about. Maybe you're telling them what lesson they should have picked. Maybe you're leaving them a story. So it depends. You have to be creative. So,
Teacher Teddy, please allow Ebenezer to ask their question. Ebenezer,
okay.
unmute and
1
ask.
minute.
You're going to be the last one.
My question is about
Ebenezer, I cannot hear what you're saying.
good evening, Madam Teddy. My
Good
question is
evening to
about
you.
the formal letter. Do we skip a line after writing the receiver's address?
After writing?
And the second, after writing the receiver's address, when you're going to the salutation.
Between
And
the
second
receiver's
question,
address and dear sir, is that the line that you're talking about? Sorry?
then the second, yes, that's the line I'm talking about.
Okay, so when you're writing, that is between the receiver's address and the sender's address, you can leave a line. Rather, the receiver's address and the salutation, the dear sir, you can skip a line. Okay, but even if
The
you don't
second
skip,
question
it
is,
would still be okay, at least for that particular part.
okay, madam,
Okay. Whoever is asking, is it okay to use American English? No, people, we use British English. So your spellings matter a lot. Avoid American English. I'd like us to end here because my time is up. I thank you very much for attending the session. And I know that we'll keep in touch, and I know that Mr. Kaziba will send you what he has. God bless you in all your planning to do. Thank you very much for being a part of this. Have a good night.
Thank you
Teacher
so
Deborah,
much,
you can
Dr.
animate
Teddy.
people.
Yes, thank you so
You're
much,
welcome, Mr. Kaziba.
and Teacher Debbie. Thank you so much for that wonderful session. And thank you so much all the teachers that have joined. We shall share the recording for those schools that joined in a bit late, such that you can be able to review. And also we are going to share again the questions and everything that you need. Thank you so much. So thank you so much. Let's